Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Word of God sharing. In this video, we will be reflecting on the Mass second reading for the Feast of the Holy Family at Christmas, 28th December 2025. In this video, we will explore Colossians 3, verses 12 through 21, prepared by Felix Liang. Let us begin by reading the verses in the passage. Second reading, Colossians 3, 12 to 21. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, lowliness, meekness, and patience, forbearing one another, and, if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish one another in all wisdom, and as you sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wives, be subject to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged.
You know, when we think about family life and relationships, where do we even look for a guide? Well, today we're going to dive into a letter that's almost 2,000 years old from St. Paul. Believe it or not, a passage in Colossians offers what you might call a blueprint for relationships, and it's surprisingly relevant. So let's unpack what it really has to say. But first, let's get one thing straight. We've all seen those paintings of the Holy Family, right? They look so peaceful, so perfect, almost like they're floating on a cloud. But as this quote points out, that image isn't the whole story. Their reality was messy and complicated, and that's exactly where we need to begin. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tear down that myth of the perfect family. Then we'll get into the actual blueprint from Colossians, breaking down the essential virtues and tackling some of the, well, more challenging instructions. And finally, we'll figure out how we can apply these ancient ideas to our own lives, right here, right now. All right, let's peel back the layers on this whole idea of a flawless life. Because the truth is, even for the Holy Family, their life was filled with some very real, very human struggles. I mean, just look at this list. It really brings things back down to earth. Joseph was thinking about divorcing Mary. Mary gave birth in a barn. They had to flee for their lives as refugees to escape a paranoid king. And get this, they lost their 12-year-old son in a massive city. And to top it all off, Joseph likely died when Jesus was just a young man. That does not sound like a picture-perfect life, does it? And that's the real key here. Their strength wasn't about having zero problems. No, it came from having a set of principles to live by, a kind of blueprint that helped them get through all that chaos. And that blueprint is exactly what we're going to explore. So, what is this blueprint? Well, we're turning to the Apostle Paul's letter to a group of early Christians in a town called Colossae. You can almost think of this passage as the operating manual he was giving them for building a healthy household. So Paul starts by telling them to put on a whole new outfit, spiritually speaking. He's not just giving some fuzzy advice. He's laying out a brand new way of being, and it all starts with these core virtues you see here. Now, before he gets into any specific family roles, Paul lays a foundation, and this foundation is universal. These are the virtues that are supposed to be the bedrock of all relationships, not just within a family. And look at this list: compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Then he gets really practical. He adds bearing with one another and forgiving one another. He totally gets that relationships are messy and that we're going to need a lot of grace. This isn't just a list of nice ideas. This is the essential toolkit for making any community work. And this, right here, this is the mic drop. Paul says to put on love over all of these other virtues. Why? Because love is the bond of perfection. It's like this super glue that holds everything else together and makes it all work. Without love, the other virtues are just actions. With love, they become a whole way of life. Okay, deep breath. Now we're getting to the part of the text that, let's be honest, can cause a lot of confusion and even controversy today. We're going to tackle these words like headship and subordination head on so we can understand what they actually meant back then. This is the big one, right? When Paul says the husband is the head of the wife, what in the world is he talking about? Is it what we automatically think it means today? Let's find out. Okay, this slide is absolutely crucial. When we hear the word head, we immediately think boss, director, the one with all the power. But the Greek word Paul used here, kephale, meant something totally different. It meant source or originator. It's about being the one who serves sacrificially to help the other person reach their full potential. The model isn't a CEO. The model is Christ, who gave himself up for the church. It's about service, not domination. So you might be asking, how can this possibly work with equality? The key is to see the difference between your status and your function. Two people can be completely equal in their worth, their dignity, that's their status, while one takes on a supportive role, that's their function. The source material gives a powerful analogy here, the Trinity. The Son is absolutely equal to the Father in divinity, their status is the same, but in the work of redemption, he chooses a role of submission to the Father. The function doesn't make him any less divine. So, with that new understanding, the blueprint looks totally different. For wives, subordination is about harmonious cooperation, not being a doormat. For husbands, the command is to love sacrificially and, get this, to avoid bitterness. That's a huge call for emotional maturity. And for parents, it's a two-way street. Kids should obey, but fathers are specifically warned not to provoke them or crush their spirits. It's a system of mutual complementary responsibility. All right, let's bring this all home. We've dug into this ancient text. So what? How can we take this blueprint and actually apply its principles to our own messy modern relationships? The source material actually gives us some homework. First, take a hard look at your own relationships. How are you actually modeling things like compassion and forgiveness with the people closest to you? And second, how are you modeling your faith to the next generation? Are you showing them a living faith, something born out of love, not just dry obligation? And that really brings us to the final thought. After unpacking this ancient text, deconstructing its tricky language, and seeing this radical call to sacrificial love at its heart, the question isn't just about what Paul wrote 2,000 years ago. The question becomes intensely personal. What conversion of mind, heart, and life is this asking of you today?
The following reflection questions and model answers are designed to deepen your understanding of Colossians 3:12-21, drawing on Catholic tradition, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and magisterial teachings. 1. The baptismal identity and the clothing of virtue. Reflection question. St. Paul uses the metaphor of putting on certain virtues, verse 12. How does this imagery relate to our identity after baptism? And what is the significance of charity being the final bond of perfection, verse 14? Model answer. In the Catholic tradition, the phrase put on, endusiste, evokes powerful baptismal imagery. In the early church, initiates would physically strip off old garments, signifying the old self and its vices, and be clothed in a new white robe after emerging from the waters, symbolizing a spiritual resurrection. These virtues, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, are not just psychological traits, but are the garments of grace that make the new man visible to the world. Charity is described as the bond of perfection because, as St. Thomas Aquinas and the Catechism, CCC 1827, teaches, it is the forma virtutum, the form of the virtues. Just as a cincture or belt held together the loose garments of an ancient traveler so they would not trip, charity provides structural integrity to all other virtues, uniting them and directing them toward God. Without love, even mercy or humility can become self-serving. It is charity that binds everything together in perfect harmony. 2. Authority and mutual subjection in marriage. Reflection question. Modern readers are often jarred by the instruction in verse 18 for wives to be subordinate or subject to their husbands. How does the church reconcile this with the equal dignity of spouses? And what is the Christological model for the husband's authority? Verse 19. The church distinguishes between status, our eternal equality before God, and subordination, specific roles within a functional order. Drawing on Galatians 3:28, the church affirms that men and women are absolutely equal in personal dignity as children of God, yet they possess complementary roles that are not interchangeable. Pope St. John Paul II contextualized verse 18 by highlighting the preceding context of mutual subjection out of reverence for Christ, Ephesians 5:21. This means that subjection is not about unilateral domination, but a self-emptying for the service of the other that both spouses must practice. The husband's role as head is strictly redefined by the cross. He is called to love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, Ephesians 5:25. A duty that is actually more difficult and sacrificial than the submission prescribed for wives. His authority is not that of a boss or a dictator, but is ordered towards the holiness and unity of the family through sacrificial service. 3. The family as a domestic church and school of virtue. Reflection question. Verses 18 through 21 provide specific rules for Christian households. How do these instructions transform the family into a domestic church? And why is the Holy Family the essential model for this life? The household codes in Colossians 3 are fundamentally transformed by being oriented in the Lord. The Second Vatican Council and Pope St. John Paul II described the family as the Ecclesia Domestica, domestic church, the first and vital cell of society where individuals learn to love, work, and grow in faith. This makes the home a school of virtue where children learn how to live with difference, to forgive, and to share. Parents are called to be the first preachers of the faith to their children, leading by example rather than just by command. The Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph is the model and exemplar for this life. The Church reminds us that the Holy Family was not free from trials. They faced the flight into Egypt, being refugees, and the death of Saint Joseph, which allows them to sympathize with the struggles of modern families. By imitating their order of love, families become a historical sign of the Trinity, where the peace of Christ acts as the final arbiter in the heart of the home. Analogy for understanding charity and the virtues. Imagine a set of beautiful, diverse pearls, the virtues like patience, humility, and kindness. Without a string to hold them together, they remain scattered and easy to lose. Charity is the string that passes through each pearl, binding them into a single cohesive necklace. It is not just one more pearl, it is the bond of perfection that gives the entire piece its form, strength, and purpose.
Thank you for viewing. May God bless you today and always.